Okay, so coming up next, last but not the least, we have two presenters from University of Michigan-Dearborn. We have Nadine Anderson, who is the Behavioral Sciences and Women and Gender Studies Librarian, and Raya Samet, the Education and Health and Human Services Librarian. So Nadine and Raya, the Zoom floor is all yours.
All right, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us today. I'm not sure what's going on with my video. I have turned it on, but there's always technical issues. I'm sorry. Hopefully my video comes on at some point. I'll just be this voice echoing in the dark. Anyway, I'd also like to thank the organizers of this conference. Since we are the last presentation, I just wanted to say this has been an amazing conference. You've done an amazing job organizing and corralling all of us presenters like ahead of time and during the conference. So just thank you very much. So I'm Nadine Anderson. I am the Canadian flag on this slide. And so my colleague, Raya Samet, who's the American flag, we are going to talk with you today about the Idea Lab, which is a pilot project that both of us were involved with. But before we talk about the Idea Lab, we'd first like to make a land acknowledgement for our university.
We acknowledge the Three Fires Confederacy, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi, the traditional owners and custodians of the unceded territory on which the University of Michigan-Dearborn sits, in an area also known as the Wa'wiatanog at the Curved Shores in Anishinaabe. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging.
All right, thank you, Raya. So we are going to start today with this quote by Philosopher of Science, Karl Popper. So we are not students of some subject matter, but students of problems. And problems may cut across the boundary of any discipline. Now, Karl Popper wrote this back in 1963, but I mean, you take any cursory look around the world today and, it's just as true today. Today's world is complex, today's problems are complex, and so solving these complex problems, requires teams that can work together to address problems, from different and innovative perspectives. Next slide. And so this is the philosophy behind the Idea Lab. Let's break students out of their, previous slide, Raya. Thank you. So this is the philosophy behind the Idea Lab. Let's break students out of their silos. Let's bring them together in interdisciplinary teams and let them practice, using their different backgrounds, their different, discipline expertise, their different perspectives to solve real world problems.
The Idea Lab was originally proposed by the Provost's office back in 2019 and 2020. It was supposed to run for the full year. And it was brainstormed not by us in the library, but by an interdisciplinary group of faculty members from across the university. Their purpose was to create a project-based interdisciplinary learning opportunity for students on our campus that would specifically teach design thinking skills. And IDEA was an acronym that stood for Innovation, Design, Entrepreneurship, and Artistry. Functionally, this came out of some surveys from the sort of business community, the people who were hiring our graduates, about the kinds of skills and experiences that they would like our students to have upon graduation, and the demand from students to have more sort of real-world problem-based learning scenarios. And we got a few, shall we say, constraints from the provost when she gave us this project to run with. One was no extra work for course instructors. The students had to be able to opt in, so they couldn't have any penalty in terms of losing course credit or points if they decided not to participate in Idea Lab. And we were trying to evaluate the process, not the end product that the students were coming up with. So a couple of things that we were trying for overall arching goals and learning outcomes were giving students opportunities to work effectively across differences, problem solving in interdisciplinary contexts that are very authentic, communicating and collaborating with a variety of different audiences, developing comfort with ambiguity, both with the process itself as well as sort of with the project, and practicing those design thinking processes and principles.
All right, so as you can tell from those learning outcomes, the Idea Lab is different from regular coursework in a few different ways. So it includes students from 3 courses across 3 different colleges. And so these students are put into interdisciplinary project teams together, breaking them out of their silos. And the Idea Lab is also focused on helping students gain practice and experience with interdisciplinary problem solving. So not with helping students develop perfect solutions to problems. The focus is on helping them with this process and embracing failure. So, if they go through this problem solving process and that doesn't result in a successful end product, that's okay. It's about the journey, not the destination. And what's also different is that librarians are integrated into each project team as project coaches to provide support. And so this goes beyond our usual roles of providing research support to courses, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
But first, we have to explain why the library should be in the middle of all this in the first place. So first of all, on our campus, we feel that we're trying to position the library as the third space, the sort of interdisciplinary space that's not part of any particular college. Things can get a little bit territorial when it's associated with one college and then you have other people from other colleges participating. So the library gets to be sort of the neutral Switzerland third space, but we also want to brand ourselves as the interdisciplinary problem-solving place on campus, the place where you come to be curious and explore. And we want to be supportive and nurturing about that. So grades weren't assigned for this, right? The learning is sort of for its own sake. The exploration is for its own sake. And we were centering the fact that this is all evidence-based. All the work that they're doing, all the problem solving that they're doing, it's rooted in real world research and evidence. So in that way, we were reimagining information literacy instruction and recontextualizing it to a more authentic medium that they're going to experience outside of academic life, where we do traditional research projects and assignments. So the magic number for our project pilot was 3. You're going to hear lots of 3s. So we had 3 teams. We had the library team. So Nadine and I are both part of the library team. That included all 6 of our embedded subject specialist librarians, as well as our first year experienced librarian, our library director, our head of user services, and our student success coordinator. We also had 3 project instructors from 3 selected courses across 3 colleges, and we had our project client. And just to give you a quick heads up on our 3 courses, we didn't get to pick them. They were chosen for us, I don't know, possibly at random. We had a math course, we had a bioengineering course, and we had an educational technology course. And finally, we should tell you about our client. That was the Maize and Blue Math Circle. So this is a group that does mostly outreach to middle schools, and they do sort of math teaching in a fun and social way for those students. So they recruit students, volunteer mathematics students, and also mathematics faculty on our campus to go out into the community and teach math in fun ways. Finally, I'll say just a very quick word about design thinking, if this is not a concept that you're familiar with. It's a design methodology that's solutions-based, it's human-centered, and it's very iterative. So you sort of always keep in mind, who are you solving this problem for? What are their needs? And you keep evolving the solutions and learning about it as you ideate and create those ideas that you test. And this was the underpinning both for the design of the curriculum and for the program itself.
And And so we followed that same design process as the students, as we were building the Idea Lab curriculum. We built the Idea Lab as we went along. You know, we wanted to undergo an iterative design process, much as the students were, and sort of model that process. And this really helped us understand and empathize with student issues and problems during the Idea Lab. You know, we were experiencing the same things, and it also helped us identify potential pain points that students might encounter. And we used all of that to do pre-planning during the summer ahead of time to create some structure for the Idea Lab. Next slide, please. All right, so the library's design team used those pain points that we identified in our own design process to scaffold and structure the Idea Lab in a way that would guide our students, you know, through this whole interdisciplinary problem-solving design process. And so Raya and I were responsible for developing project management documents, and these help teach and guide students, you know, through this whole process. You know, things like choosing team roles and values, writing project descriptions, developing deliverables, things like that. And so these project management documents, they also built towards the final proposal and provided, you know, built-in check-ins throughout the semester just to make sure that our student groups were on track. And they provided structure around the multiple milestones and work involved, you know, just so steps didn't inadvertently get skipped over by our students. Next slide, please. And so as we mentioned before, pairs of librarians were assigned to and integrated into each project team as project coaches. Now, part of this was the traditional role of helping our project teams do research. You know, we really did want our project teams to build evidence-based solutions, right? Emphasis on evidence-based. Sorry, Raya, you, nope. Anyway, but we also went kind of more beyond that traditional role. You know, we guided them through the design process, you know, both at team meetings and also in Canvas. And so Canvas is our campus learning management system. And we use that to send announcements out to our teams. And being integrated into Canvas was especially helpful because we did only meet with our Idea Lab project teams twice in the semester in person. So with Canvas, we could send periodic tips out to our project teams, you know, just reminding them, you know, we're available for help. We're available for questions. If you want to set up a meeting, you know, please feel free to do so. And it was also just a good way to remind them, you know, what they should be working on, like what milestones they should be thinking about at any given time as well. Next slide, please. All right, and so here you can see our project coach cards. And we gave this to our project teams that we were integrated into. Now, one of our goals for the Idea Lab was to make it fun. And these cards were part of that approach. You know, we also used these to be more approachable to our student project teams, just, you know, so we were a little less intimidating. And so that was the Idea Lab, you know, fun, interdisciplinary, problem-based learning. All right, so after the pilot semester. So the survey feedback that we received from our initial pilot was pretty positive about the overall goals of the Idea Lab. You know, most students found it to be very useful practice for managing the group dynamics that they would experience in their careers, and also, you know, with working with people from other disciplines, other perspectives. That being said, most of the negative feedback that we received was about negative group dynamics. And one of the main suggestions for improvement that we received was more accountability for each of the members of the group. Although from what I hear, I think that's a pretty common complaint in any course that has group work. So some students also indicated that dedicated class time for groups to meet also would have been helpful. It was pretty difficult for some groups to schedule time to meet. And we did find that the teams that could meet together were more successful than the groups that found it difficult to find time to meet. You know, the library could provide space, but, you know, we couldn't solve scheduling. That was out of our hands. And the students also wanted the Idea Lab to be better incorporated into their courses. So it didn't seem so much like add-on busy work. And related to this, they also wanted their course professors to be more involved in the Idea Lab, so that they could get course credit for their work.
Yeah, all that is interesting because if you'll recall, many of the stipulations we received from the provost sort of made us do these things, right? That we couldn't use class time, we couldn't incorporate into the course because it had to be optional and it wasn't supposed to be extra work for the course's instructor. So we took all this to heart. I mean, after all, design thinking is about being iterative. And so we took all of the feedback and we put it back into refining the program so that we could adapt and make changes for winter of 2020 with all the things we had learned. Of course, we were going to have 3 brand new classes with 3 new instructors and a new client. So we started off with a lot of enthusiasm. We had a few bumps in the road during our fall pilot semester in 2019, and we were working to iterate when all of a sudden there was a global pandemic.
Yeah, so this is where we're supposed to talk about the future of the Idea Lab. But, like so much in our lives right now, we just don't know. We put in this conference proposal pre-pandemic when, as Raya said, we were in the 2nd semester of our pilot year for this project. At the time, this was a big priority, highly visible project for campus that our campus leadership was really excited about. And it was a real coup for the library to have such a high profile role in this project. And we were also putting together an assessment plan for this project as part of the broader campus practice-based learning task force. But then, like, I'm sure you know where this story is going, our campus closed because of COVID-19. And the 2nd semester of the Idea Lab project was suspended, and now this project has been put on hold indefinitely. Like everywhere else, our priorities changed pretty quickly on our campus with COVID-19. And also, there have been changes in campus leadership during our campus closure. So, we just don't know what the future of this project is. That being said, our campus practice-based learning task force did recently find that even during the pandemic, our students find coursework with connections to real-world problems, real-world issues, and that emphasize real-world application of learning to be very useful. So, this sort of learning is still something that is a priority for our students and that they're interested in. So we're hopeful that some version of the Idea Lab starts up again when we return to campus.
But we don't want you to think that we didn't learn anything useful. In the meantime, we do know some things that we want to share. We know that we need to think more creatively, more flexibly about our roles as librarians and the way that we can integrate information literacy on our campus and break out of our box. We need to be clear about the roles and scope of all the team members involved. We had a lot of players taking part in this project, and it's important for all of them to be on the same page. And that's true with any big collaboration. We also have to be strategic about positioning the library and our expertise as librarians when we partner with campus initiatives. Sometimes they don't know what to expect from us and what we can offer and bring to the table outside of the sort of traditional things that we've always done before. And finally, and I think this might be the most important, Idea Lab was about embracing failure and taking risks. And we learned that taking risks and trying new things tends to be a net benefit, as scary as it is. So we just need to destigmatize failure and we need to go out and try things. So with many thanks to Concordia and the committee, we are opening it up for questions.
Just in time, look. My camera's
there you are, you appeared.
Yeah, my camera's magically back on. Hi, everyone.
Thank you, Nadine and Raya. As they said, it's time for questions. Feel free to put in the chat or raise your hand. Maybe I'll just ask the first question. I really like how collaborative your project is, and with different stakeholders like the course instructors and the client. I'm just wondering if you could talk a bit more about how that process was working with people outside of the library, working with many different collaborators.
That was interesting. Here, Raya, you'll probably want to talk more. I'll just start by saying that the people that we were supposed to collaborate with outside the library, it was mainly our library director collaborating with them. We had like one meeting with them, didn't we, Raya, during this process?
Yeah, I'll say we do lots of collaborations across campus and with outside organizations regularly. So it wasn't that strange. What was strange a little bit about this was that there had been sort of already a group of people working on it, and they just sort of handed the baton to us. So we sort of got a work in progress to complete, and that was a bit different. Normally we would sort of develop it from the beginning and work in collaboration with our stakeholders throughout the whole process.
Yeah. I think usually we collaborate throughout the whole process. This did not happen. We had a meeting with the teachers once, and we had a meeting, I think, with our client once. And so I think we found towards the end of this that maybe we were not all on the same page about what expectations for student solutions were. I think the library was certainly more focused on evidence-based solutions than our client turned out to be, but overall it was a really good experience. So lots of it's always nice when you have lots of buy-in from campus leadership. So
yeah, I see a question from Sylvie in the chat about, can an idea lab work in a hybrid environment? Have you given this some thought? Oh boy.
We have, like I said, this project has been put on hold. So this is not a project we have thought about for a very long time, except putting together this presentation. I know there was some talk before our campus closed down early in last March about could this keep going in an online environment. And I think for student collaboration purposes and having those initial group meetings, I believe that we decided it couldn't be done fully online, but it could be done in a hybrid. I mean, we were already kind of doing it in a hybrid way, right? We were already in Canvas. We were already embedded in Canvas project teams. So there was a lot we were already doing in the learning management site. So I think we could certainly move more into Canvas, but I think having those two initial in-person group meetings were really important. What do you think, Raya?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could certainly, I actually think it could be an entirely virtual, an entirely online program. It's just a question of being able to support the sort of technology aspect of that and making sure that you build that into the program, because not all of our students are very tech savvy and they don't all have the same equipment. So there are just some barriers there when you start trying to do meetings that require some specific technology. You're just going to have some stumbles in that. So I think it's definitely possible. I think we're getting better at imagining things in hybrid and online methods in terms of implementation. So as we have more practice trying to run them, I think we'll be more bold in trying to offer them for students. Okay, another question.
Why don't
multitasking.
Oh. Okay, go ahead, Raya.
So Alistair McRae says, sorry, multitasking, so this question may have already been addressed. What does the next 5 years hold for the project? I wish I knew what the next year held for the project, but it's an excellent question. I think some version of it will continue. I think some kind of project-based learning thing, whether it's this exact program or something sort of similar, will exist, and it will involve the library in some way. I don't know if it'll be exactly this.
Yeah, I was actually in a meeting recently with our new provost, and I'm quoting here, she actually said the words, "Our campus needs to tear down the silos and get more interdisciplinary." So I think this does meet, our new provost's goals. But so as we go back onto campus, post-pandemic, I think we'll start having conversations about what this looks like going forward. Okay, and I see we have another question. From Susan Tudin. So can you elaborate on what areas you are embedded in on Canvas? So we actually manage the whole Canvas site for this project. So it wasn't a matter of like being embedded in some areas and not others. So we actually managed the Canvas site for this project. So we had all our project management documents were on there. We had access to the calendar. We were all embedded in project teams within Canvas. So within individual Canvas project teams, so we could send announcements out to our own project teams. But we also had access to like the wider Canvas announcement. I don't know if anyone saw our learning management system. So we could send announcements out to the whole group as needed.
Yeah, so we worked in pairs and we were each embedded into 2 project teams and 3. Oh,
I was in 3, yeah.
And so within Canvas, there were sort of spaces that were just team spaces that you would have access to if you were working with that team, and so would all those team members. But then there was sort of the bigger course that was the project for everybody. So the librarians kind of permeated all of those spaces, but then some of those smaller bubbles, it was just about who your project coach was. It's a great question, though.
Mm-hmm. All right, any other questions for us?
Yeah, we have a few more minutes.
Hi, if I may, it's more of a light comment, but I just really enjoyed at the beginning of your presentation when you mentioned that the library was a place to be curious. I feel like often we brand academic libraries like success to support for success for the students, and which is great, but I feel like being curious, it's so much welcoming, and it does have the same goal of just like, we'll support you, and it's just really welcoming. And I don't know, I feel like it was a very exciting way to put it. Thank you. Thank you for presentation.
Thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, embracing failure isn't something that we're used to promoting as academic libraries or in academia. So, embracing failure, curiosity, I feel like that goes hand in hand. When you don't have to succeed, you can go, maybe you could be more creative about the places you go.
Oh, that's super well put. Thank you. Why we don't embrace failure, but it's gonna happen like when at some point anyhow. If we try, if we try something, we will fail at something. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think one last point, if nobody else has a question, is our students are really uncomfortable with ambiguity.
God, yes.
They were so stressed out by the fact that we couldn't tell them exactly what they were supposed to come up with in the end and what it was supposed to look like. And I think, that's part of why we created this, is to say, in the real world, we don't know what the answers are before we start. And that's part of the process.
Yeah, they really wanted us to tell us, like they were really uncomfortable with the idea, like, what do you mean we don't have to be successful? Like, what does that mean? It's like, it's about the process, the journey. Anyway.
Okay, last chance for questions. If not, then thanks again, Nadine and Raya, for telling us about the Idea Lab.